There are hotels in every city, every town. Some are grand, with marble lobbies and chandeliers that sparkle like ice. Others are quiet, tucked away on lonely highways, their neon signs flickering in the dark. And in these places, stories grow. Stories of rooms where shadows move without light, of whispers through walls that should be silent, of doors that lock from the inside and never open again. But one story stands above the rest. A story about a man who checked into a room and never left. The hotel was ordinary. The night was ordinary. But what happened in room 6 was anything but ordinary. The man's name was written in the register. His suitcase was carried upstairs. His key was handed to him. But no one ever saw him check out. No body was found. No trace of him remained. Only one message left behind in the mirror. 3 words that chilled everyone who saw them. Don't look for me. It was 1965 when Thomas Gray walked into the Crescent Hill Hotel. At least, that was the name he signed in the logbook. A quiet traveler, dressed in a long dark coat, carrying only a small leather suitcase. The hotel clerk remembered little about him, except that he paid in cash. The bills were worn, old, almost brittle. His face was pale, forgettable. The kind of face, one guest later said, that slipped from your memory the moment you looked away. He didn't smile, didn't talk much, just asked for a room for the night. The clerk gave him a key. Room 6. Room 6 was on the 2nd floor, down a narrow hallway lined with faded wallpaper. The light above the door flickered, buzzing like a trapped insect. The room itself was ordinary at first glance. A single bed, a dresser, a cracked mirror that hung crookedly on the wall. But the housekeeper who had cleaned it earlier that day always hated stepping inside. She said it felt wrong, cold, even when the heater was on. Heavy, like the air itself was watching her. Still, Thomas Gray took the key, climbed the stairs, and closed the door behind him. No one thought much of it. Guests came and went all the time. But something about him stuck in people's minds. He didn't eat in the hotel dining room. He didn't speak to anyone else. But late that night, as the rain fell harder outside, the guests began to hear noises. Someone pacing, back and forth, back and forth. The sound of footsteps, steady, restless, as if the man in room 6 hadn't slept at all. One guest complained to the clerk. The clerk checked the ledger. Only room 6 was occupied on that floor. He shrugged. Maybe the man couldn't sleep. Maybe he was nervous or ill. But the strange thing was this. The electricity had gone out that night. The entire 2nd floor was dark. And yet, one guest swore he saw light seeping out from under the door of room 6. A faint, pale glow, cold, unnatural. The man was there, pacing, whispering, talking to himself or to someone else. And yet, when morning came, no one saw him leave the room. Housekeeper enters room 6 in the morning. Bed is untouched, perfectly made. Suitcase sits on the dresser, unopened. But the mirror, cracked, slightly fogged, has words traced in condensation. Don't look for me. Housekeeper drops her cloth, runs out pale and trembling. She tells the clerk, who brushes it off. Maybe she imagined it. Maybe a prank. But she swears the mirror felt cold to the touch, like ice. That evening, guests approached the desk. We couldn't sleep. Someone was pacing overhead all night. The sound never stopped. Back and forth, back and forth. They checked the ledger. Only room 6 was occupied on that floor. Guest insists he saw a pale light glowing under room 6's door, though the entire second floor's power was out. The clerk is unsettled. Some guests swore they heard whispers that night. A man's voice and another voice. Higher, quieter, as if Thomas Gray was not alone. One woman reports hearing her own name whispered, though no one was there. Another man insists he heard a child's laugh from room 6. Around 3 a.m., clerk can't ignore it. He takes a candle and goes upstairs. Hallway is dim, wallpaper peeling. Room 6's door is slightly ajar. He pushed the door open. The room was empty. The suitcase was still there. The bed untouched, but the mirror fogged over, though the room was freezing. As he steps closer, he sees not his own reflection, but a figure behind him. A man in a dark coat, face pale, eyes black. He spins around. Nothing there. The clerk slams the door shut, trembling. He swears never to go back upstairs again. That night, no one slept. Every guest swore they heard footsteps, whispers, pacing in the dark. And yet, the man in room 6 was never seen leaving. The room was locked. The suitcase was still there, but something else was inside with him. By the second night, the Crescent Hill Hotel had changed. Guests were restless. The storm outside grew heavier. Whispers of unease spread through the halls. But room 6 was silent. Too silent. The housekeeper, Mrs. Keller, was the first to notice something was wrong. She knocked on room 6 to clean the room, but no one answered. Still, she swore she heard footsteps pacing inside. When she finally unlocked the door, the room appeared untouched. The bed was still perfectly made. The suitcase was still on the dresser, but the mirror was different. Scratched into the surface were 3 words: "Don't look for me." The message spread quickly. Some guests checked out immediately, demanding refunds. Others whispered about ghosts, curses, or worse. The clerk tried to calm them, insisting it must have been a prank. But those who stayed said the atmosphere in the hotel grew heavy, like the walls themselves were listening. Alone at the front desk that night, the clerk kept glancing at the register. Thomas Gray's name was still written there in bold black ink. But every time he looked again, the handwriting seemed different. Shaky, distorted, as if someone was rewriting it over and over. And then he heard it, a whisper drifting down the staircase. "Don't look for me." By dawn, room 6 was empty, completely empty. The suitcase was gone, the bed perfectly made, no footprints, no signs of departure, and yet no one saw Thomas Gray leave. The front door was locked, the windows sealed. It was as though he had dissolved into the walls. In the weeks that followed, room 6 was closed off. The hotel claimed it was under renovation, but guests still reported strange things. Lights flickering in the empty room, footsteps pacing late at night, and every so often, a pale figure glimpsed in the cracked mirror, staring back. To this day, no one knows who Thomas Gray really was. No family claimed him. No record of his past was ever found. All that remains is a name in a ledger, a locked door that no key will open, and a warning scratched into glass: "Don't look for me." After Thomas Gray's disappearance, the hotel tried to carry on. Guests still checked in, the dining room still served meals, and the staff pretended room 6 was just another locked door. But it wasn't long before people began asking questions. Whispers spread among the regulars about a man who entered a room and never came out, about the words carved into the mirror. The manager made a decision. Room 6 would be sealed, the door locked, the curtains drawn, the number scratched off the register. But as anyone who has ever stayed in an old hotel knows, doors don't always stay closed. Even locked, the room was restless. Guests in the rooms nearby reported hearing pacing footsteps, the same restless sound from that first night. Others swore they saw a pale light leaking from under the door, even though the electricity was shut off in that wing. One maid refused to go upstairs alone. She claimed she saw the cracked mirror move, as if someone or something was still standing on the other side. The legend grew with each retelling. They said if you stood in front of the mirror in room 6, even when the room was empty, you would not see your own reflection. Instead, you would see him, Thomas Gray, a pale figure in a dark coat standing behind you, silent, still, waiting. By the 1970s, Crescent Hill Hotel's reputation was ruined. Travelers avoided it. Locals whispered about it. The once grand lobby grew dusty. The chandeliers dimmed, and the hallways fell silent. Room 6 became more than a locked door. It became a story, one that no guest could ignore. And in time, it became the very reason some dared to come. Teenagers from the nearby town would sneak into the hotel at night. They dared each other to touch the doorknob of room 6. Some swore it burned ice cold. Others claimed they heard a man's voice whisper their names. And a few said they saw words appear in the dust on the door. The same 3 words that started it all. Don't look for me. For decades, room 6 remained locked. A place whispered about, feared, avoided. But in the 1990s, the Crescent Hill Hotel was purchased by new owners. Investors who wanted to restore it, bring it back to life, erase the old stories. They believed the tales of Room 6 were nothing more than folklore, ghost stories told to scare children. But then, they made a mistake. They unlocked the door. The new manager, a man named Charles Whitman, stood outside Room 6 with 2 workers. The brass key was stiff, as if the lock itself resisted being turned. When the door finally opened, a wave of cold air rushed out. The room was exactly as it had been left in 1965. The bed still made, the dresser untouched, but the mirror, the cracked mirror, was covered in words, not carved, not written, but pressed into the glass, as though by breath. Don't look for me. Repeated, again and again. The police were called. Paranormal researchers arrived. Even journalists came, eager to cover the story of the haunted hotel. Some swore the room felt heavy, suffocating, as though unseen eyes followed them. Cameras malfunctioned. Batteries drained instantly. One reporter claimed she heard footsteps pacing inside, though the floor was empty. In October of 1994, a team of investigators spent the night in room 6. They set up cameras, audio recorders, thermal equipment. At 3:12 a.m., every camera went dark. Every recorder fell silent. And when the lights returned, one of the investigators was gone. His chair sat empty. His coat was draped over it. But he was never seen again. The survivors claimed they saw him, for just a moment, a pale figure in a dark coat standing in the mirror, the same face described by guests in 1965, Thomas Gray. But he was not alive. His skin was gray, his eyes black hollows, his lips moving silently. And then, he was gone. The mirror cracked once more. This time, new words appeared in the glass. You shouldn't have opened the door. Some stories fade with time, but others grow stronger, passed from one voice to another, like a shadow that refuses to disappear. The tale of Room 6 is one of those stories. Even today, decades later, the legend refuses to die. Though Crescent Hill Hotel eventually closed its doors, the building still stands. Abandoned, boarded up, overgrown with ivy, but people still go there. urban explorers, paranormal thrill seekers, skeptics wanting proof. Many of them bring cameras, some bring recorders, and almost every one of them comes back with the same story. They hear footsteps, they hear whispering, and sometimes they hear knocking from behind the wall where Room 6 once was. In the age of the internet, the story only spread further. Forums filled with blurry photos, recordings of static-laced whispers, videos showing doors opening on their own. One video, uploaded in 2011, showed something chilling. A group of teenagers explored the second floor. The camera panned across the faded wallpaper where Room 6 had been sealed. And just for a moment, a handprint appeared on the wall, pressed from the inside. The video was deleted days later, but not before thousands had seen it. Some say Thomas Gray was never a man at all, that he was something else, wearing a human face for one night, until Room 6 swallowed him back into whatever place he came from. Others believe he was a victim, trapped, cursed, unable to leave, warning others not to follow him. And some insist the hotel itself is alive. That Room 6 was not a room, but a door that should never have been opened. So the story remains. A man who checked in and never left. A room that should not exist. A mirror that still carries his warning. Don't look for me. Perhaps one day someone will open the wall again. Perhaps the door will be found. And if they do, perhaps Thomas Gray will be waiting, still pacing, still whispering, still watching. And maybe then, it won't just be him who never leaves. Hello friends, would you dare to spend one night in Room 6? Or would you open Room 6's door, yes or no?